everyone, my name is Grace Zimmerman and I'm Miss Idaho 2019. I first became involved in the Miss America organization as a teen almost 7 years ago. Time has flown, and since then I've earned over $14,000 in scholarship money. All of that will help me achieve my goal of finishing my degree in marketing and entrepreneurship. At Miss America, I did a live clay throwing demonstration on a pottery wheel. While clay is my favorite thing ever, and the wheel is definitely my comfort zone, I recognize that most people don't have access to clay or a wheel at home. So today I'm going to be teaching you how to make salt dough. It can be manipulated very similarly to clay, but it doesn't need to be fired at over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's really easy to make. So let's get started. Today we're going to be making salt dough rainbows, and the first step in that is creating our salt dough. To start, I'm going to be mixing 2 cups of flour with 1 cup of salt. I'll stir those 2 ingredients together. Now I'll add 3/4 cup of water gently as I stir. Okay, my dough is mostly combined and seems a little bit dry, so I'm going to add a splash more of water. Much better. You can see now that that dough has all combined into one clump, really. So I'm going to turn that out onto this cutting board here. And I'm going to gently fold this dough and make sure it's really smooth. I did notice that the salt dough was sticking to my cutting board a little bit, so I grabbed an extra bit of flour to help be a barrier between the salt dough and the board. That makes working it a lot easier. I want it to stay all in one clump, but I don't want it to be sticking to the board. Now my ball of dough is really a consistency that I like. I probably added a splash too much water, so be careful when you're hydrating it initially to add the water little by little until it gets to the right place. I'm going to break off a piece. Doesn't really matter what size to me. I'm not being super precise. And I'm going to just roll this into my hand until it's pretty thick tube. Then using flour on my surface, I'm going to roll with both hands very gently, and I'm putting slight pressure, just letting the weight of my hands push down, and then rolling it back and forth and pulling my hands outward. Okay, by rolling this into a tube, I'm forming my first piece of the rainbow. Now I'm going to continue to form coils that are that consistent thickness. You don't want to push too hard with your fingers, because if you do, you'll end up getting spots where your fingers indent the clay and you'll have a lumpy tube. As lightly as you can, from your fingertips to your palms, if you can just roll it lightly and let it spread slowly, you'll have a more consistent coil. Just so you all can see, I'm taking those coils and lining them up in that arch orientation. I'm not being super precise with it now, I'm just estimating those lengths, and then I'll go ahead and reassess in a minute. Now that I have 7 coils that are lined up, they're not quite together, they're not quite even, but I think they're perfectly imperfect. And I'm going to take my bench cutter or a knife or butter knife and even up these edges. I could use this excess dough to make another rainbow, or you could put it in a Tupperware and set it aside. It should keep for a few days. Alright, my rainbow has finished baking. I let it bake for 2 hours at 250 degrees. Then I set it on a rack and let it cool off completely before sitting down to paint. Now, you can see that my individual ropes of salt dough, or those coils, have fused together. When the salt dough is baking, it does shrink slightly, so if you have separate units, they will contract and bind together. So now we have a solid piece, which is pretty cool. Now it's time to finish it with paint. I want to mix it up today and paint a color palette that I'm loving right now, and so I'm just going to be using some warm neutral tones. Here we go. Alright everyone, here is my finished product. I am super happy with how this turned out. I think that the rainbow and the warm ombre is so fun, and I'm looking forward to hanging this piece on my wall in my ceramic studio. I'm going to leave just the bare paint because it's a decoration and I kind of like the matte look. But if you want to give your piece a more durable finish, go ahead and spray it with a coat of clear spray paint, and that will protect that paint and give a beautiful glossy finish. Thank you all so much for tuning into the Miss America organization to watch my demonstration on how to make a salt dough rainbow. If you decide to try this at home, please be sure to use the hashtag MissAmericaHowTo. Thank you and happy crafting.